Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're going to take a look at Venus conjoining Uranus at the final degree of Taurus. We're going to run it through all 12 whole sign horoscopes and give you a sense of what topics are being activated by this conjunction. And also, we're going to be taking an opportunity to look at this as a moment of reflection and review on the last 7 years that Uranus has spent in the sign of Taurus, going all the way back to May of 2018. So I will refresh a little bit on that timeline and then ask you some questions, give you some prompts to work with given the conjunction of Venus and Uranus at the final degree of Taurus, but also given the last 7 years. This is a great moment to reflect on where we've been. So I hope that you'll find this useful. Before we get into it, as always, remember to like and subscribe, share your comments, reflections, stories, anything you've got. It's always good to hear from all of you. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on my website, which is nightlightastrology.com. Couple of brief promotions today. One, if you have never checked out our reading service, go to book a reading on the website, click on need-based astrology readings, and you're going to find tiered pricing with different astrologers at different levels. And this is a way that we have of giving some of our best graduates and staff opportunities to read and develop their practice while also providing flexible pricing points for folks so that nobody's priced out of a reading. If you go over to the events page, the other promotion for the day, click on live talks, you'll see that my next talk on July 10th is happening soon on the 9th house. This house was actually associated with some of the best karma that we each have in this lifetime. Why? That's a really interesting topic that we're going to be discussing along with the other significations of the 9th house. Why is this house associated with long journeys, foreign countries, study, higher education, spirituality? Like how? Why? Once we understand that, we can really start working with the 9th house in our charts, and if we read for others, in other people's charts at a much deeper level. So I hope that you will enjoy that talk. When you register for any of those live monthly webinars, you get the link to attend live, but if you can't make it live, you do get the replay, so you can watch it whenever you want. All right, well, on that note, let's turn our attention to the real-time clock. And I apologize, it is like 95 degrees here today, and I'm going to be outside most of the day, so I'm a little scrubby right now. But yeah, you guys can just deal with me in outside dad mode for a minute. Kids and I are going to be trying to stay cool today. Actually, as a Cancer son, I love the summertime when my kids are home from school. It is easily my favorite time of year because I just get to be with them more. But okay, let's take a look at this. So you can see today, Thursday, July 3rd, Venus is about 1 degree off from a conjunction with Uranus at the 29th Anaretic degree. Yesterday, we did a full talk on the potential meanings or the different things that you might watch for given that conjunction at the final degree. Go back and watch that if you haven't yet, because that's going to give you a lot more on that topic. What does Venus and Uranus combining at this degree mean? They will conjoin tomorrow, July 4th, the holiday. If you're celebrating, you can expect a little extra sparkliness from the Venus-Uranus conjunction. And then Venus goes right into Gemini. And then by Monday, Uranus goes into Gemini. We talked about all of that again yesterday. What I'm going to do today is run Venus and Uranus through each of the whole sign houses. But what I want to do first is just go back in time. It was May of 2018 when Uranus first entered the sign of Taurus. Since then, we have been in about a 7-year period. We'll have a little bit more of Uranus and Taurus this year as Uranus retrogrades back into the sign of Taurus, kind of does a little bit more before moving in to Gemini to stay for the next 7 years by the early part of 2026. But what's, I think, really interesting about the culminating moments of an anaretic degree like this, conjoining with Venus at the same time, obviously, adds a little pop to it, but it's a great moment to review. Where have I been? What kinds of Uranian themes or activities have taken place in my life over the past 7 years? So I invite you to look at these horoscopes today, not only in terms of what you might experience right now at the end of this week, given the combination of Venus and Uranus, which itself could provide some flair, some pop, but also what does this represent, this moment, this little space that we're moving through in terms of where I've been for 7 years. What process have I been through? Now, when it comes to a Uranian process, we are typically thinking about words like revolution, breakthroughs, innovation, originality, breaking and shifting and changing patterns in a fixed earth sign. Nonetheless, that might have to do with things like your deepest held values, desires, comfort, security, pleasure. The sign of Taurus is a sign that values security and a kind of steadfastness that creates peace, simplicity, ease, pleasure, comfort. This is the earth goddess's sign and the exaltation of the moon. And so it is a sign of habit and routine, but only insofar as that kind of creates like a smooth wave pattern. So consider that right now as something that's been passing through your life in the whole sign house of Taurus for 7 years. This is a great moment to reflect on where you've been. Where were you in May of 2018? Where are you now? Reflect on that as we go, and I think you'll get even more out of the Venus-Uranus combination. And if you want more archetypal insight on the actual combination of Venus and Uranus, I covered that yesterday through the 5 things to watch for. So go back and watch that maybe first if you haven't yet. These horoscopes you'll get a little bit more out of if you do that. But Venus-Uranus, just a reminder, bringing things like breakthroughs, shifts, and changes, emancipation, insight, originality, flashes of revolutionary impulse that come in through Venus. Love, sex, marriage, relationships, friendships, women, sisters, sensuality, art. So that energy combining on the 4th of July ought to be interesting. I feel like it could make for some very dazzling displays of fireworks if you watch fireworks, for example. But anyway, let's now roll this through the 12 whole sign houses, starting with Aries. If you're in Aries, this is a culminating moment, 7 years worth of Uranus working through a house that has to do with material resources and assets, the kinds of things you develop that provide material security, comfort, ease. This is a house not only related to money, but generally related to what do I have? A house that might be called a house of self-sufficiency, but also any resources or assets, the cultivation of any kinds of resources or assets that feed you, nourish you, support you, prop you up, give you a feeling of support, security, and comfort. How has the revolution of Uranus through Taurus over the past 7 years been taking place in this area of your life? And what kind of culminating flashes are you seeing right now with Venus conjoining with Uranus? For Taurus risings, we see a 7-year process. I'm a Taurus rising, so I'm just like, wow, this has been incredible. Over 7 years, I changed my name, joined a religious group, changed my name back, left the religious group, went through a total transformation of body and health and identity, really explored and dug deep into the questions of what makes me me. This would be common for any Taurus rising over the past 7 years. What is this culminating moment? A breakthrough, a shift, a change, last flashes, a grand finale. How are we thinking about this for Tauruses with respect to things like identity, body, health, and maybe even the process of individuation, which we're always going through? What inflection point is it reaching right now? Who have you become? How have you changed and opened yourself? In what ways have you sought greater freedom or breaking out of old conventions and establishing newer and maybe more authentic versions of yourself, new routines for life, new versions of health? All of these kinds of things have been active for 7 years now. So what does it look like when Venus conjoins Uranus at this culminating moment for you Taurus risings? For Geminis, we're looking at this in your 12th house. So we're thinking about this in terms of a space that's been maybe relatively unconscious. This is a blind spot for ancient astrologers. It's a spot that you get in touch with by separating yourself from the world, in a sense, by letting go of control and, for example, going into altered states or meditation or deep work in therapy, dream states. The space of egolessness that the 12th house describes is often a place that Uranus brings us to and revolutionizes our life through events that are outside of our control. But if we've taken time to explore that space, willingly, then what have we discovered? What breakthroughs are we ready to bring forth? Because Uranus is now moving into your first house out of the 12th. It's a bit like a birth moment. Things that have been gestating behind the scenes, beneath the surface, unconsciously. Some of them maybe things you need to get in touch with, some of them things you may need to rid yourself of. But now you're reaching this critical moment of birthing from that unconscious realm that was also literally associated with the process of labor and contractions prior to birth, that is the movement into the first house. So for Geminis right now, I really feel like you're in a process, 7 years of things gestating deep behind the scenes where the conscious ego does not have control. And now you're ready to see that birth come through and present itself in terms of a new individuation process that is going to be in full swing as soon as next week when Uranus enters your first house. Very exciting time for Geminis, a kind of liminal or transitional space that's going to be shifting really dramatically in the next couple of weeks. Well, for Cancers, we're looking, if you're a Cancer rising, you listen to this for your sun sign as well, obviously, as all my videos, but this is taking place in your 11th house. For the past 7 years, how has your life shifted with respect to long-term goals, ambitions, dreams, community spaces, or friendships, social networks? In what ways have you departed from old dreams, ambitions, and different groups of people and established new ones? That process of revolution and individuation with respect to social dynamics, professional goals, public identification. It's been a long process. And how is it culminating right now? What are the final moments of revolutionary shifting or changing with respect to your aspirations, your community or group involvement, and identification? Cancers also, like, there's upcoming for Cancers with Uranus entering your 12th. We're going to do horoscopes for this a number of times, but you're moving from also into a space that really is going to invite a deeper level of reflection. A lot of revolution, as Uranus is constantly representing, is going to be taking place with respect to the more unseen, hidden, unconscious dimensions of life. And that's going to invite you inward for a kind of internal revolution. Whereas for the past 7 years, so much of it has been about the changing social dynamics, the changing group or social networks that you've been a part of. So that's an interesting shift as well. All right, let's go to Leos. So for Leos, we're looking at the Venus-Uranus dynamic conjoining in the 10th house, the place of career, public-facing self, your public identity and reputation in the world. This is a place that connects you to the public, usually through what you do, but even if you're retired, how are you still connecting to the world outside of your home, the civic and social arena? For 7 years, Leos have been going through a remaking and a reworking of career, profession, public identity, vocation. And that revolutionary impulse may have you doing something now that's very different than where you were going back to, say, May of 2018. There may be some culminating moments right now that kind of put the seal over the process that you've been through. What are the culminating moments of continued or even final revolutionary activity taking place in your career house right now? Also, moving into the 11th, you've got a movement into new and different and varied social networks that are going to become really important. For Virgos, the Uranus dynamic has been in your 9th house, the place of higher education, learning, philosophy, long journeys, or travel for 7 years. This is a process that has, in a sense, been about alternative forms of learning, breakthroughs in understanding, shifting your philosophical framework, finding teachers, breaking from different lines of thinking and changing paradigms. It's been about new ways of thinking about body and earth and sensuality and femininity, sacred earthy topics in the 9th house for Virgos that are connected to your dharma. Like, why am I here? Who am I? That process is also a process of learning, and learning specifically for Virgo risings about the sacred sensual dimensions of embodied life on earth. That's a lot of the space within which spirituality takes place for Virgo risings with Taurus in the 9th. What has that revolution looked like over the past 7 years for you Virgos out there? How is it reaching a moment of inflection or culmination or completion right now with this flurry of the Venus-Uranus contact? the revolution is going to continue as this carries right over into your career house. So what you've been learning is now seeking to express itself in the world. Here we go. All right, we're going to Libras. Now, for Libras, the Venus-Uranus conjunction is taking place in the 8th house. Over the past 7 years, you have broken free from a variety of soul contracts. The interdependent dynamics of the 8th house are very frequently being disrupted, broken apart, and reconfigured while Uranus, the god of revolution, travels through the 8th. So if you go back to 2018, those first couple of years, what soul contracts were changing? Which soul contracts were changing so that there could be greater freedom, greater originality, more movement, more spaciousness? And what new contracts have come in that are reflective of a process of change and growth that you've been going through? How do you exchange value, money, energy, time, value of any kind with other people? Uranus through the 8th reflects a dynamic period of disrupting the norms that have governed relationships and karmic exchanges in your life for the sake of new ones. Now, you may be reaching another important moment of culmination or closure or completion of a process that's been taking place in that area of life. Ultimately, we want to be interdependent with other beings in ways that are healthy and rooted in love and reciprocation and care and concern, devotion. So has that been the process? Have you been getting closer to that? That's a good question to ask. All right, we're going to move forward. For Scorpios, you've had 7 years worth of Uranus in your 7th house, the place of love and relationships. How have relational dynamics been completely revolutionized in your life? Are you with new people? Are you in different types of relationships? What kind of change and greater freedom or shifting of habits, routines have taken place within relationships to facilitate greater freedom, more creative flow? The Uranus dynamic in the 7th sometimes disrupts and breaks up relationships. Other times it brings new, exciting people into our life. Whatever the case may be, over 7 years, you've had this god of revolution moving through the space of intimacy, love, interpersonal connection. It's reaching a culminating moment right now. What is coming to the surface? What over the past 7 years is reflected right now in the kinds of changes or the kind of finish line that you're crossing at this time? So all about love and relationships, interpersonal dynamics of any kind, and the changing landscape of values and love and connection and desire within relationships. That's what Scorpios are looking at. For Sagittarians, we see this long process in the 6th house. What's interesting to me about this is that over 7 years since 2018, very common for Sagittarians to have gone through a period of constant disruptions with respect to health, flow, ease, security. I happen to know someone who's started off with retirement, Uranus entering the 6th, liberation from work. That's nice. However, since then, it's been one health hurdle after another, preventing things like mobility and movement and ease and flow. I would anticipate that many Sagittarians out there have gone through similar experiences. On one level, Uranus in the 6th can emancipate you from dynamics that are frustrating or laborsome or burdensome. It can liberate you from work and make it easier somehow. It can also gradually help you overcome various health obstacles that have been in the way. But Uranus will overcome obstacles in the 6th through the kind of emancipatory impulse that it brings. But it takes a long time, 7 years worth of learning to free ourselves from things that have been hindering or that have required a lot of time or work or sacrifice. So how has your life been revolutionized along the lines of work, sacrifice, labor, hardships, and obstacles you have to sort of persevere through? And how has Uranus been revolutionizing your life through these kinds of things, reaching a culminating moment of finality and closure? Uranus is now shifting into the realm of relationships for you. All right, so for Capricorns, this is in the 5th house, place of creativity, place that is associated with the natural desire to express ourselves creatively and to seek or find creative fulfillment. This could be romantic. It's creative fulfillment in terms of even things like having children or pregnancy. There's, for Capricorns right now, a 7-year process of the revolution of creative impulses in your life, how you share them, where you find them, what brings joy and happiness, what releases you because you express it creatively, whereas if you don't, you feel pent up or stuck. Uranus has been highlighting all of these things for Capricorns for 7 years now, reaching a culminating moment with Venus conjoining Uranus. What is the final instructions, directions, homework that you're receiving in terms of, you got to do this because it's a part of your creative essence. You got to do this because it really provides you with happiness and connection. You got to do this because this is a creative dharma you're meant to share with the world. Watch for those final reflections or insights as Uranus is culminating right now in your 5th house of creativity, joy, creative fulfillment. That can also sometimes come through for Caps in terms of things that have to do with kids if you have them, parenting and stuff like that. So Aquarius in the 1st house brings Venus and Uranus to conjoin in the 4th, the place of home, family, roots, and the place of living environment, your living space, your the actual physical environment of home, but also what constitutes home in an internal way. And there's an interiority to the 4th house that speaks to our psychology, the inward private sphere of life, where I find rest, where I find comfort, safety, emotional security, and also the connection to things like family, roots, land, living environment in a more physical, literal sense. The karma around home and family has been going through quite a change over 7 years. So how is that process coming to a space of culmination right now? What are the final moments or lessons, the final breakthroughs, the final revolutions around your roots, around home and family? Thinking about that for Aquarians. Finally, Pisces, you have this conjunction in your 3rd house. For 7 years, there's been a revolution with respect to mind, learning, things that you're practicing, cultivating, developing through work, through your ambitions. This house is connected in Indian astrology to both ambition and effort around what we desire, what we want to cultivate. Maybe you've been learning to podcast or video produce, or maybe you've been studying astrology, or maybe there's some other skill you've been learning. Maybe there's some form of self-expression you've been developing. Over 7 years, what has the revolutionary impulses of mind, learning, effort, practice that you've been pouring in looked like? And how is that reaching a moment of completion right now, or a last sort of flourishing of this creative work that you've been in the process of? It's also a place that can disrupt your immediate environment, the sort of everyday life around you, and bring in revolution. Revolution around things like siblings, neighbors, environment, everyday life, that kind of village ecosystem that we all live in mentally, socially, psychically. What have the paradigm changes been over the past 7 years that have changed the way daily life operates? These are considerations that may somehow be reaching a place of culmination. Not surprisingly, Uranus is about to go into your 4th house, where it then starts to create revolution at the actual roots, your inner life, your living environment, where you live, what you call home, family karma. So that shift from the 3rd to the 4th is connected in that way. These are just a few things to consider as these planets, as these planets get together at that last final Anaretic degree. So I hope that this has been useful. As always, tomorrow I have a friend of mine named Toad. She is a really fun, quirky, visionary artist who pulls tarot cards. For the holiday, I wanted to help promote her work because she's a friend of Ashley and me. And I have her on tomorrow to give you some card pulls for Uranus into Gemini. I'll be doing some horoscopes for Uranus and Gemini. Obviously, our monthly overview this week, we did horoscopes for Uranus and Gemini. So you're going to get a lot on that still to come. Hope you'll enjoy those tomorrow if you're out on the holiday. Felt like just kind of a light, fun episode for the end of the week. On that note, I'm going to go get into the sun and try not to melt today too. It's like 95 degrees here. So anyway, I hope you're all having a good one and that you found some value and usefulness in this. And we will see you again tomorrow. Bye, everyone.